If you're watching this video, the May Boston apparel collection is now live. First link down below. Let me show you guys everything we got dropping real quick. Let's start off with my favorite t-shirt. We got a bubbly Boston apparel on the front. In the back, I'm sorry, your car is slow. This is releasing in gray, blue, black. Next up is the Infinity line. Boston Apparel Spring 2022 Infinity Collection. Building till infinity. The cars may change, but the building never stops. Black, red, and this light gray color. Last three tees are the Freedom to Build tee. Here's the front, here's the back, and we have that in 3 different colors as well. Moving on to hoodies, we have the 2 drip. These 2 hoodies are the vintage wash. Super dope. These are definitely my favorite hoodies we've ever done. And then the last 2 are just a nice simple Boston Apparel USA collection, black and this burnt orange. No jet tags dropping today, but we do have these I'm sorry your car is slow air fresheners. Now we are doing something pretty fun. Every order for the next 24 hours is going to get free cash in your order. You might get $1, you might get $5, you might get 10, you might get 100. Every order over $100, domestic US only, does qualify for free shipping. I really appreciate you guys' support. First link down in the description box below. Enjoy your shopping. I don't know who's slower, Bobby or Subaru. Probably Bobby.
You were going to get your ass beat. What kind of horn is that anyway?
Do you want to work on this hunk of shit?
Hell no.
Or do you want to work on that beautiful thing?
That's the only reason I'm here.
All right. So like I said in yesterday's video, we are done working on her STI for a while. I know what the issue is. I just don't want to fix it because the motor has to come back apart.
Yeah. Which is really sad for me, so I have to drive the BRZ.
Oh my God, you have to drive a 2022 BRZ. That sucks. Fucking, what a terrible life you have.
Don't put that on.
If you keep being ungrateful for the car you're allowed to drive, I'm gonna make you drive the white Hawkeye. Or better yet, the blue Hawkeye.
Okay, I would say the same thing if I drove any other car but my own. Because I like my own. Does that make sense?
All right, let's get the Evo up on the lift. It's gonna take a while, all right? You ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right.
Are having some issues with...
So to get started off, I'm gonna go ahead and give the engine bay a good pressure wash. It's not terribly dirty, but it's not perfect. And I want it perfect. I'm sure Bob wants it perfect as well.
I do.
All right, you're leading the way. What's next?
Apparently we gotta clean some parts.
Why do you say apparently? You're the one who's building it.
But you told me I gotta clean.
Okay.
Okay, let's go take a look.
So I cleaned the engine bay and then the underside of the car, and then we cleaned the shop floor. And now, of course, the next step is we got to build a whole ass engine. So here's a bunch of engine parts right here. There's the turbo kit, trans, and this whole wall is full of parts. Here's the block.
Should we put the drivetrain back in?
The subframe?
Subframe is what I...
No, we'll do that after. It goes engine and trans together. Transfer goes in, subframe goes in. It's the easiest way I found.
Got it. So what are we cleaning first?
Engine stuff. Everything in this box right here needs to be cleaned. Okay?
Easy.
Let's do her. And the block as well. A trick of the trade. This car had a lifted head, so there's severely milky oil throughout all of these parts. The best way to cut through that bullshit, get yourself a nice bin like we got here, okay? Grab yourself a $5 of gasoline. Gasoline is expensive, but it is much cheaper than degreaser, and I'll cut through all that shit. Now all you gotta do, we have an oily motor mount.
Okay.
I put some gloves on as well. Let it sit in there for 3 seconds. Pull it out, pressure wash the hoe, move on to the next part.
Pressure wash the what?
Hoe.
Honey, we need some more intelligent language.
Pressure wash the item.
Good job. I just have a question.
What's up?
Why is this one worn differently than the rest?
It doesn't really matter because it doesn't really ride on nothing.
It just hooks it down?
Just sits down.
Gotcha.
So the shitty part of the build is pretty much all finished up. Well, it is. We got to clean everything up. So the stable is scattered with parts, everything from timing cover to water pump. And then over here, so we got a little, every time we build the engine, I always make this L, you know, it's just sick to build it. Over here we have everything else. The block, got a fresh hone on her, pistons and rods, all that shit needs to be cleaned up. Here's our cleaned up head. Our girdle. Bobby, I know you like that girdle word. Freshly polished crankshaft, and then gaskets, bearings, seals, oil pump, timing chain, all that shit's over here. So as far as I know, everything is ready to go for tomorrow, Bobby. We can build your short block in the morning if you want to come hang out at the shop at 4 to 5 a.m. before the drop goes live. No?
Definitely not.
Yeah, my goal tomorrow morning is to build a short block. I don't know if I'll have time. The drop's at 11 and I gotta be home well before then. So I'll get done what I can, but I'm just excited all that bullshit's out of the way. I'll see you guys in the morning. Goodbye. The next tedious part of the build, measuring all of the bearing clearances, the piston to wall clearance, setting the ring end gap. Let's knock all that out. I've already showed you guys a couple times, but I'll briefly run through again. Thankfully, we're working on an Evo today and not a Subaru, so it's gonna be much quicker to measure the main line. On a Subaru, it's a pain. Evo or any inline four, it's much easier. So up top is our rod bearings. Down here are the main bearings. Let's go ahead and measure out the main line first. So everything's pretty clean. It's all gonna be re-cleaned before assembly, but as of right now, it is 99.9% clean. Clean enough to get everything measured out. Main bearings are different top to bottom. The bearing that goes in the block is the bearing with the groove. The bearing that goes in the cap is the bearing, of course, without the groove. As you can see, all the caps are numbered as well, 1 through 5, 1 being on the timing side, 5 going on the clutch side. We are running ARP mains, and if you're gonna go with ARP main studs or any sort of main stud, you need to have it line honed, which this has already been done. When using ARP hardware, you need to use the ARP fastener lube, even when checking the bearing clearances. Let's go ahead and get everything torqued down. If you ever have a question on the torque, go on ARP's website. They'll show you right here. M10 studs go to 70 foot-pounds. The M8 studs go to 32 foot-pounds. We have the main line torqued. One thing I forgot to mention that I'll always mention is with the bearings. Tang always goes to tang on the mains and on the rods. So what I mean by that, that piece there is the bearing tang, top to bottom, they have to go together. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's get this guy measured out using some tools. All we need is some T gauges and a mic set. I have a digital set made by iGaging, pretty cheap, and I went digital because I don't know how to read non-digital ones. It takes me forever. So our measurement on crank journal number 1 is 2.0477. I'm just gonna go ahead and zero this out. And then we're gonna measure journal 1 on the block using the T gauge, measure the T gauge with the mic, and whatever that number shows on here is our bearing clearance. We're shooting for something like that. Measured out the first one with the T gauge. We have the T gauge in the digital mic right now, and our first main bearing clearance is 0.0021. Perfect. Let's knock out the other 5. We can move on to the rods, and then I probably just get the crank out of the way. We can go to get the crank set up in the block. We are running into something that I did not foresee. As soon as I pulled this crank out of the bag and looked at it, I was a little bit worried. I never checked this crank out before. I dropped it off at the machine shop to have it polished. And then as soon as I started measuring it out, I'm like, it don't look right. All the mains look fine, but actually not all the mains. Main number 4, this is gonna be kind of hard to show on the camera because they're pretty pretty small, but there's definitely some lines in it. I wouldn't consider it grooving. I would consider them like just wear lines. Rod 3 is a little sus, and it really sucked because I was banking on getting this entire short block done this morning. I sent photos over to 3 very reputable people to get their advice. If you got fingernails, drag it across the crank. If it catches, then it's not ideal. I just don't want to assemble this entire engine with a crank that I'm not 100% confident in. So we might have to order a new crank for this car, which they're pretty spendy. I don't dare tell Bobby. It's funny too, because this thing was polished by a local machine shop. And of course, if they thought it wasn't good, they would have let me know. They thought it was fine, but for a 800 plus wheel Evo, I don't want anything even 99%. Everything has to be spot on 100%. My guys at English are recommending I replace it. Let's see what some other people say. I'll probably replace it. Not all hope is lost. This, of course, is a setback for this morning, but maybe not a setback for the entire build. We do have a spare 4B11 sitting in the corner of the shop. I have no clue what's wrong with this engine. I bought it used here locally. I know they pulled it out because it does not run, but the crank may still be good. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this thing out real quick and rip the crank out. If the crank looks beautiful and measures out perfect, then we can run it. If not, we're just gonna have to wait about a week or whatever and wait for a brand new OEM crank to come in. So let's go ahead and pull this motor apart. Enough to get the crank out. I'm gonna leave the top end on. We just gotta pull the pan, pull the girdle, pop the crank out, and see how she looks. So far, so good, other than oil in my face. All the mains look fine, no spun bearings. Now let's pull the rods. All right, so we got this crank all cleaned up. I would say it's nicer than the original crank out of this car, but it's still not perfect enough to use. It would be perfect with the polish. And of course, today being Saturday, there's not a single machine shop that's open, I don't think. One sec. Yeah, I can't find a machine shop open today on Saturday, at least one that I trust. What I'm gonna do is come Monday, I'll bring both cranks in to a machine shop and I'm gonna have both of them polished. Even though we already technically had this one polished, I don't know if it was touched. It doesn't really look like it to me. I could be mistaken. So yeah, kind of sucks, but I'd much rather go down this route, have an engine that I'm confident in, other than one that we're always second guessing the condition of the crankshaft in, which of course is a very vital component of the engine. Of course, with scarring and marring on the crank, that's gonna prematurely destroy the bearings, which of course we do not want. So I guess with that being said, I'm gonna wrap this video up right here. If anyone in Spokane has a new or perfect condition crank for an Evo 10, I'll buy it. Or if you're somewhat local, like Tri-Cities, maybe even Seattle, hit me up. Peace out, my friends. I'll see you guys tomorrow.